I don't care who you are or what you've accomplished. At some point in your life, you've questioned your own worth. Maybe you're doing it right now. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because for many, once that bully in your brain starts to chip away at your self worth, it's tough to shut it down. But not today. With the help of today's guest, you're going to be reminded just how worthy you are.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
From the cornfields of Iowa, Jane Boulware defied expectations to lead billion-dollar businesses and rise as a top Microsoft executive. Passionate about empowering others to recognize their worth, Jane now dedicates herself to mentoring, board service, and cherishing outdoor moments with her family. All proceeds, I repeat, all proceeds from her book are committed to the Boys and Girls Club of America's Youth of the Year scholarships, and her book is called, appropriately enough, Worthy, From Cornfields to Corner Office of Microsoft. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Jane.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Did I get Boulware right?
You got it right. You nailed it. Well done.
Normally, I checked that out before, but Jane and I were talking, and she threw me off a little bit. So I'm getting back on the horse here. All right, it's a pleasure to have you here. So let's dive in. Millionaire at 37, one of the top 10 women at Microsoft at 40, launched $3 billion businesses, was vice president of the largest merger in the history of the U.S. That is some story, particularly when you add penniless and married at 20. Was there a moment or event that shifted your trajectory from what you'd refer to as a future that was forged by others to this?
Well, my mom always said, you never did listen, Jane. So I would say from the time that I was young, I was doing things a little bit differently. I grew up I was the fourth kid born in a one-bedroom house in rural Iowa, to a very modest family, from modest circumstances. And I respected and appreciate very much where I'm from. I love where I'm from, but I always knew that it wanted to be from where I was from, not where I was at. And so was there a specific moment that I said, I want to achieve this? Rob, I'm going to be really honest. I did not have a line of sight outside of my small hometown. I didn't see a town of 100,000 people until I was after I was 16. I didn't see the ocean until I was 25. What I did do was I worked really hard and I said yes to jobs and opportunities that other people often said no to. So in the process of doing that, I think in some cases I was too scared to fail. I was too stubborn to let go. And the more I tried to put myself out there and succeeded, or even failed, but kept trying, the more I started to value my ability and value my worth. But truthfully, I think everyone struggles with self-worth, no matter where you're at in your career.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it never goes away. Actually, what I tell people is there's always a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And the more disciplined we are to avoid adhering to that voice, the quieter the voice becomes, but it never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And and then once we give it oxygen, then it gets louder.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I know you're going to laugh at me, but I don't hit a snooze bar. I don't know where a snooze bar is. Who put in a snooze bar? Why would my first decision be to procrastinate and to go back on the commitment I made the night before? But one of the fears, Jane, is the moment I hit it, how much easier will it be to hit the snooze bar the next day?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't like to, it's putting something off. And I like to jump out of bed. My goal is to get up before the alarm goes off.
Yeah.
I look at the alarm as something that if I sleep too long or sleep longer than I might have intended, then I better, it's a stopgap for me, but it's not the goal. The goal is to be awake and to get going before even then. And so in that way, yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's interesting because the book is called Worthy, but there's an "un" in front of the worthy because the book is as much about undoing the uns as it is about the worthy. Because we un ourselves to death, right? I'm unable, I'm unconfident, I'm unsure, I'm courageous, I'm unworthy. And if that's the voice we're listening to, that unvoice, we'll never get to the worthy, the courageous, the positive, the able. And that's a lot of what my book is about.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in reading this book because I so believe in what you're talking about. I I think that we're fooled, we're lulled to believe that when we're teasing ourselves and saying things like, okay, and this happens to road warriors a lot. Okay, stupid, where's your belt? Wait, if you had half a brain, you would have remembered your toothpaste. We chip away and it's almost disguised as, oh, I'm just teasing. But the more we say it, the more it gets embedded, the more we believe it.
It's not humility when we tear ourselves down. It's not. It's almost ego. It's like, oh, I'm with you. I bet those voices, those negative tears, those rips, that death by 1,000 cuts is worse than having someone come at you with the machete, because the machete you can duck and it's one big swing. It's the death by 1,000 cuts that get you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I say again to add to that, I know I'm pushing this thought at you, but we kind of think we're teasing ourselves when we're chirping, you know. Okay, brainless. I mean, I just have stopped it, and I really encourage people, particularly those. We have a sales audience, we have entrepreneurs. Not every day's a party in sales. We get the answer no a lot. Not every business idea succeeds, but we can't be fooled into believing that these little voices that I love what you said, death by 1,000 cuts, that this just little cut here and there means nothing. It all matters. It all counts.
It does. And to me, there's a difference between when you're talking to someone and you're trying to relate to them, and you can put a joke at your expense. That's cool. Like, right. I call myself a pig farmer from Iowa. I could be in the corner office, but at the end of the day, I'm a pig farmer from Iowa. And I talk in pig farmer simple words.
Yeah.
And someone said, why do you say that? Why do you put yourself down? And then I look at them odd, because I know pig farmers, and that's not a tear down. They're great people, and that's actually a compliment. But it's a way to connect with people. And that's different than the voice inside your head that nitpicks you, that tells you what you're not doing versus what you are doing. Yeah. You know, John Gottman has done research. He's a relationship expert. And he's done research that suggests if you don't have a minimum of 5 positive for every negative, all you do is remember the negative. You don't even remember at all the 5 positive. So if you're not giving yourself 5 positive messages to every negative, your net effect is you're negating on, you're crapping on yourself.
Wow. Well, there's a thought I'm going to be taking with me for a while. I really appreciate that, Jane. I've never heard it before. And I've always felt pretty good about just being the guy that isn't listening and isn't allowing myself to get away with teasing myself when no one's around. But that goes a step further. And that's something I'm going to take from this conversation. Thank you. Well done. Look at that. All right.
I feel like I've earned my time with you today. That's awesome.
You can always don't take a step back now, but you're on fire. Okay.
The bar is up there.
It is.
I can crawl under it.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm always just like my audiences, like your audiences. We're always looking for 1 or 2 things that we can take with us, that are repeatable and predictable, that we can actually implement. So when I say to you, I'm taking that with me, that's measurable. That's actually something that I can implement. And to me, that's a piece of gold. That's what we're looking for.
It's in my book, Worthy.
That was my next question. Yes. It better be in that book, Worthy. All right. So you wrote Worthy to inspire others to act with courage and resilience and succeed despite being told what they can't, won't, and shouldn't do. Great on paper. All right. How do you break the habit, though? You know, we're sort of into this. Well, look what I found, and thanks for sharing. But so many people struggle with this. How do you break the habit of being knocked down and not having that resilience that you're writing about?
It's a good point, because I do think that a positive attitude and a positive outlook is as much of a habit as anything else. And honestly, I think a lot of people are afraid to feel afraid, and they try to appear fearless. I think that's bullshit. I shouldn't say that. I think that's baloney. I don't try to appear fearless because then I feel like a fraud. What I try to do is fearless, right? And I used to think that if I felt afraid, there was something wrong with me and I didn't want other people to see that I was afraid. But I now look at fear or being afraid of something, depending, I mean, not so that it's incapacitating me, but I've taken so many stretch positions in my career, so many jobs that others said no to because they thought they were too risky or too crappy or whatever. But I took them. And in some cases, they were big stretches for me. If I wasn't afraid, I was a fool because I was learning something new. I didn't know what I was doing. I was out over my skis. I was stretching myself. That's a healthy kind of fear. And so differentiating between a kind of fear that is because I'm stretching myself and I'm pushing myself and I'm putting myself and giving myself new boundaries versus I'm in danger. One you can address with Tums. The other one you can't. The one you can address with Tums is not a negative thing. It's something that you should embrace and have courage because the good stuff in my life came when I was afraid, but I acted anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think anybody listening, go ahead, take a moment. I'm going to give you a second to think. Every major move you've made probably has come with those butterflies. So I'm going to bring up a movie. I bring it up probably once a month because I love this
Okay.
movie from the 90s, Defending Your Life. Have you ever heard of the movie?
Sure, of course, I
Okay.
watched it.
And what is the criteria? What is that writer talking about? This is a movie that deals with whether, in our lives, when we finished our lives, do we move forward? Do we move back? What's the criteria? And, I think a lot of us think, well, was I a good human being? And that's not going to hurt you, by the way. But what I loved about this writer, Albert Brooks, was fear, exactly what you're talking about. What were the moments of your life where fear held you back? And when did you go for it? Regardless of the success you achieved, when did you not let fear hold you back? And I got to tell you, Jane, I saw that movie and it still stays with me. I still think about, did I just make a decision based on avoiding fear, or was that a rational decision? And the greatest days of our lives are when we bust through that curtain of fear and just go for it.
I couldn't agree more. I think, they always say the things you regret are the things you don't do, not the things you do. So
Yeah.
I really agree with that sentiment. And
Yeah.
I think, I have a picture in my bathroom that says, I'm paraphrasing, but when I die and I meet God, I want to be able to say, I used every bit of talent, every gift you gave me to the best of my ability, and there was none left. I wrung it dry. And that's how I want to feel. And I can't do that if I'm afraid. I can't do that if fear is keeping me or holding me back.
Yeah.
And so the other thing, is it's not all about me. I've learned in managing businesses and building large businesses, you can't be everything. And so you surround yourself with people who have skills you don't have. And your job as a leader is to make them great, not make yourself great, not even make the numbers in some cases. Because when you make those other people who have the skills that are necessary to succeed great, the numbers are a lagging indicator. They're not a leading indicator. They're a lagging indicator. So when you surround yourself with great people who are aligned towards success, Katie bar the door. Nothing's going to keep you from that. And your fear should be, am I surrounding myself with the right people? Are the goals the right ones? And am I taking the risks that I need to take to make the rest of this happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Some of the greatest managers that we'll have, what is the criteria for a great manager? Everybody has their own opinion. Mine is very simple. Do they understand that they're there to help the individuals in that team figure out where they want to get to and if they can help them get there? And many managers are uncomfortable with people that maybe are taking my job. I don't know. But the greatest managers I ever had, it's very clear right out of the gate, my job is to facilitate and help you become successful and fit in on this team. And I tell you, I mourned the day when that manager would move on because those are the good ones.
Oh, I write in my book a little bit about, what some of the things I had about learning, building businesses, and, A's attract A pluses.
Mhm.
because passion attracts passionate. And B's and C's attract C's, D's, and F's so that they can look good by comparison, right? Because B's, C's, D's, they're worried about, looking better than the people behind them. And the A's are excited about putting people better than themselves ahead of themselves. And that's how you get ahead.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that.
Yeah. I can't disagree. Okay, so Worthy, from cornfields to corner office of Microsoft. Every author, including me, is challenged by coming up with titles. So how did you choose the title?
Oh my gosh, I went through so dang many titles. I think it's important to note that the title reflects why I wrote the book. I didn't write the book to say, look how Jane went from the poverty of Iowa to the plenty of Microsoft, and here's the steps you take, and here's how you do it and be like me. It's not that.
Yeah.
The book, it's a collection of stories that will either make you snort in laughter or projectile cry, and sometimes both. And it's not just for women. In fact, the men that I've done the testimonials only did it on the condition that I not say that it's a book for women. I called it Worthy because it is as much about anything, the journey that I was on to eliminate or to overcome the obstacles to success that were in some cases circumstances, in some cases other people, but in many cases were myself. And I think that it was literally the journey that talked as much showing the inside as the outside. And honestly, Rob, as a woman that's gone from not much to pretty decent, I didn't see many books like that in general, much less for women. There are so few women that have climbed up to the top tour to the corporate office. And I wanted to be real. I don't have a secret sauce. I don't have anything unique about me that others can't do. And the year that I left Microsoft, I counted 27 people on my calendar that I was mentoring, sponsoring, or coaching in one way or another. I was wired and tired from all the coffees that I had. And almost all of them were holding themselves back because of their because of the talk that the teasing they were doing, the talk they were giving to themselves. And they wanted to know what my secret sauce was. There isn't any. And that's why I put in the book. A lot of it is resiliency and working hard and all of those things. But there are things that you can do. But there's, it was literally to overcome the people to help those people who have imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And
who have worthiness issues realize they're not alone. And they can, in fact, overcome those things, and they can claim their own worth and their own success.
Yeah. I think, if you don't mind me saying so, I think you sell yourself a little short when you say there really isn't a system or a process here. I think there is, and you're articulating it from many different angles. I think sometimes, at least when I really share your story a little bit. I have a lot of people that I mentor, a lot of people that, it's the greatest joy is to be able to give back. But I'm pushed on that a little bit, Jane, about, and even when we work with professional speakers, people who want to get up and speak, and their head is into, well, what if this happens? What if I can't? What if I lose my place? And I love the two words, track record. What usually happens when how many times has the room blown up or the power gone out? Well, these are really great fears, but great quote. And I don't have the author on it. I've actually looked it up a few times, but it's not mine. I wish it was. Worry is the misuse of your imagination. And I feel that people oftentimes are guilty, including you and me, when we're unconscious about it. Now that we're not thinking as clearly. I think we're misusing our imagination. So when we remind people, first of all, you're misusing your imagination a bit. And second, just give me the track record, the last 10 times where you've been in a similar scenario. They can almost never come up with the fear that they put on the table that they're chanting like a mantra.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with you. I think that you can create the skills to be successful. If you look at my track record, it's pretty impressive in terms of linear. And I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I achieved this, and geez Louise. And it would have been easy to talk about that. And when people like to introduce me and they go, I did this at this and this and this and this at these ages, it's like, wow, okay. That's true. But really the way I define success and the way that I coach other people, or the way that I find people get in their own way, is overcoming the uns in your life. Yeah. And figuring out your yardstick for success and using your yardstick for success and not someone else's is one of the fastest ways and trajectories to advance. Because you'll know what you are and are not about. You'll find out what you're strong and not strong about. And either you'll align yourself towards that or get other people around you to help you with that.
And I appreciate that. That to me is a process behavior.
It's true.
I
mean, honestly, you put me in any scenario just about business related.
Right.
I mean, to be clear, I went and became the leader of the U.S. Windows business on a Thursday, and on Monday or so I started. Over the weekend, I looked up howitworks.com and got Windows for Dummy because I didn't know what an operating system was. So yes, there are skills you can clearly apply. There are things that you can clearly assist them and you can do.
Yeah. And you hustled and you did, you utilized your time the best you could to get ready for Monday. And then if I were there, I would have been whispering right before you got up there, Jane, track record. I know you're not as prepared as you want to be, but track record.
Yeah. You're right.
And oh, by the way, disagree with me all the time. I love when people disagree with me because you're the author and I'm like the junior Jane here. I'm just listening going, oh, here's kind of some of the thoughts that I put in there. But I really, I'm taking notes from you today. So I appreciate it. All right. I got to get at this piece because I have interviewed hundreds of authors. I found a few. I was actually going through my notes before we spoke. I went, has to be some that have donated some of the proceeds of their books to XYZ. You're donating 100% to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America Youth of the Year scholarships. Okay. Now, I couldn't flush it out of you when I said, was there a moment and you went of your life where things no, I just grew up hustling. Was there a moment? Is there a story behind this one?
Oh, there's a gnarly old nun behind us. She's like 4 foot nothing. She had lightning bolts coming from her eyes. And when she spoke, she was so filled with passion and conviction. You're like, it must be a direct line straight from God, and out her voice. And she pulled me aside one day after class when I was in high school and said, what are you going to do when you graduate, Jane? And I did not have an answer. And so she asked me a couple of questions. What do you like to do? What are your interests? I was in chemistry. I was good at these things. I was smart. She said, you should go to college, Jane, and you should get a degree in forestry. Now, 2 things about that. Number one, I had no money, but I had been earning my own way for a long time by then. And number 2, more importantly, Iowa has 4 trees in it. And she wanted me to get a degree in forestry, and I'd never even seen the forest. So there's that. But she took the next step then, Rob. She said, there's a scholarship I think you should apply for, and I'll help you. And it was a $320 scholarship. It was nothing. But I got it, and it was validation that I was college material. Between that gnarly old nun and getting that almost nothing scholarship, it raised my line of sight to become something that no one else had ever talked to me about or even thought I could be. And that was enough to get me to bounce. And that's why I'm donating to the Boys and Girls Club, because there are great kids there whose backward trajectory and their forward trajectory opportunity don't align. And without a scholarship, they're not going to they're not going to be able to achieve what they might be able to. So in some ways, I'm paying back Sister Francis Xavier.
Outstanding. Well, you just heard it, folks. So I'm usually pushing on my audiences to go get these books, but look, I think the greatest part I've heard about this book is truly the stories that you're going to get, the inspiration you're going to get. But my goodness, backstory on that, and knowing that you're helping the Boys and Girls Clubs. Also know that I'm lowly podcasting today, but in 4 years I've never heard a story like that from any guest. So you're putting your worthy money where your mouth is there. Uh, we're going to buy that book, and don't forget when you put a nice review on the book, that's going to inspire other people to who are thinking about it to go get that book. So let's make sure we do that. I told Jane before we started. I decide during the podcast if I'm getting a book, I'm getting this book. And I'm
Thanks.
writing a
Yay.
review on it, and I have to because Jane said I'll be watching you. So but you'll see, and my name isn't like Pineapple 3. It'll be Rob Jollis on that review. So there's no place for me to hide. What a wonderful uh, cause and a wonderful reason to write that book. And hats off to you, Jane, for not forgetting who to thank there. When did that, Scott? How many years ago did this story take place?
Well, the story with Sister Francis Xavier, I was a
Yeah.
senior in high school, right? So I'm
Okay.
60, so we're talking 40 plus years. So I'm just saying, thanks a
I
lot.
wasn't out your age. I wasn't out your age. I was
No,
just
I
looking
don't
for
care.
some momentum here of
I
how about a
actually am
lot of decades
totally,
here?
I don't care about my age. I will tell anybody I'm proud of what I've achieved in 60 years. I figure I got another 30 years to go, 50% of my life to get more done. I'm
There
good
you
with
go.
that.
Good. Good. Good for you. All right. You write, and I'm going to be quoting you on this one so I don't get in trouble here. You write you've been called a bulldog,
Mhm.
a bitch, an idiot, and brilliant all in the same week.
Yep.
I got the brilliant part, but how do you maintain your cool when somebody's taking a shot at you? The bulldog and the idiot and the other one, not so good. And we've got a lot of people. I help people in career transition, and a lot of times we have a person in career transition. They couldn't do what you did. They got called one of those names and they couldn't let it go. How did you deal with that?
I refuse to let someone define me. I appreciate, and when someone calls me a bulldog, that's a compliment. That means I bite and I don't let go. I got no
Mhm.
problem with that. That's tenacity. If that weren't part of my core capability or part of my core of who I am, I'd still be working at the Piggly Wiggly in Iowa. Um, a bitch, that's someone who doesn't like how I'm pushing something forward, probably against what they might want or the way that I'm doing it. And you know what? If you're going to call me a name, I'm going to think about that. I'm going to think, why are you calling me that? Is it valid? Is it not valid? Do I need to shift? It's feedback, right? It's not a label. It's not a crown you're going to put on my head. I choose what I wear and don't wear. I got that. That's powerless. Um, an idiot. Well, I got to be honest. I'm really smart, but sometimes I'm really stupid at what I'm doing. And when I'm stretching myself, I don't pretend to have the answers. If you want to call me an idiot, again, I don't wear that. I am not dumb. I am not dumb, but I might be dumb about what I'm supposed to be doing. So help me understand.
Yeah.
What was the other one? The bulldog, a
Well,
bitch.
brilliant. It got called brilliant. We left a
Well,
good one
heck,
out.
I'll take that all day
Yeah.
long. See,
That one
that's
you
the
can
one I
handle.
forgot. That's the one I forgot. So there you go. So I don't mean to be dismissive.
Hmm.
I have had problems with self-worth and fear and all of those things. And I talk about that very openly in my book. I talk about even bulimia in the book and how I used coping mechanisms to address my fear that were very unhealthy and how I had to learn to overcome and change course on that. I'm very honest in the book because I want people to know, like when they see me, they see someone that, looks like she got her act together and has everything figured out. We don't, nobody does. And there have been times in my life when I really didn't have it figured out.
Yeah.
Despite a title, despite a paycheck, despite the jewelry I might have been wearing, I was a hot mess and I was having a meltdown. And I put that out there.
Well, it sounds like a very honest book. But I'm going to just give you a nudge just a little bit further, okay?
Sure.
And there may not be one here, so good luck to both of us on this one. But I'm looking for a process behavior, meaning maybe I'm 35, and maybe I was raised to believe that being called an idiot and not confronting back would be a sign of weakness. Now, just so you know, uh, I consider it a sign of strength. I think there's a time to pick our battles, and I think we're probably lined up on that. But that's hard, and that can take a few decades. So, is there a process behavior that if somebody takes just a ridiculous shot at another human being? Is there something maybe we could do or say or just to get out of that situation? Because we know by tomorrow we'll be more rational, but it's hard when you get nailed, particularly if there's a team around.
Yeah, because your initial response is one of two things, or a couple of things, is to bite back and become
Mhm.
aggressive in return. And you echo the nonsense that you just received back at them, which, by the way, no one wins. Just validates all the nasty stuff they just said about you.
Yeah.
Or to wither and you absolutely absorb it and you're like, I am an idiot, and that's no good, because that's letting them win. That's a total win-lose where you just lost. I personally think the way that you respond to this is you have done your homework beforehand and you have done the work that says, I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. And there's not much you're going to hear. It's maybe different words, but if what they're doing is legitimately poking at a weaknesses of yours, that you can say, I hear that, I acknowledge that, and not wilt because you know it. It's kind of like having a strong core. If somebody's going to sucker punch you and punch you in the gut and you got your core engaged and your core is strong, it's still going to hurt, but it's not going to knock the wind out of you. Yeah. So you have to do the work. You have to be able to stand up to it in real time. And I'm sorry, Rob, but if you're a woman and you are working in corporate America, or you're working your way up, you have probably done it despite a lot of obstacles. And if you haven't taken those punches and learned how to take those punches, the likelihood you're in that corner office is really low.
Yeah. Yeah. The seminar leader in me kind of comes out on a question like this. And I will tell you, as a process behavior, you're going to laugh because it's so trite in a sense. But I always amazed what I take from the seminar world to the individual world. Rule of thumb for a professional speaker is when somebody says something that's inappropriate, the first one's free. Meaning sometimes people just say things and it comes out wrong. We hear it wrong. It's a good disciplined behavior to just slow down a little bit. Now, look, you call me an
You
idiot
say that to
twice.
them?
I'm sorry. No.
You
I'll just rephrase whatever it was and push forward. In other words, I'm not engaging at all. It just didn't happen in
That's
my.
really good feedback. You should do this for a living.
Well, it keeps you out of trouble because some people it just comes out wrong. The second time, now we know that, all right, this wasn't an accident, and this apparently is how you feel, and there's different ways of handling it. Again, I like it better. I actually, James is going to sound crazy. I like it better in front of a room of people than not in front of a room of people because I can use the room when it happens. I can say,
totally.
well, Jane, I think what you're saying is this, it's coming out a little bit aggressively. How do the rest of you feel about this? Because when there's that kind of a conversation in front of a team, everyone's uncomfortable. And usually the person who calls you an idiot, they've called other people idiots. In other words, like they're not the person who's never done anything like this. So the team knows, the group knows. The biggest challenge is, and you've said it, is I can't fire back. We can't go into a spiral. I can't call you an idiot back. And that takes discipline.
You can deflect and diffuse to others, but you can't take it and go directly back to the person
Right.
from who came, because that is a defense mechanism that is just going to absolutely boomerang on you.
Yeah. I think you've said this. I think you've said this, by the way, but I'm curious because you talked about your success and you really downplay it. So maybe we ought to get at is your definition of success, which I'm loading this question up because I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit different than what most people define success as. So let's go there. And maybe it shifted, but how do you define success?
The very first story in my book is a story about a pickle bucket. And in our family, there were 5 kids in 6 years, and we each had a pickle bucket, and it was shoved under the rafters. And in that bucket, that was our own personal space. We put everything that was of value in that pickle bucket. That was our treasure trove. And it proved our value. The more you shoved in it, the more you were worth, because our family worked really hard and defined success by what you got and how hard you worked. So much of my life, I tried to fill that pickle bucket with degrees or money or titles, whatever that might be. And it did nothing to make me really feel more worthy, happier, etc. And I got and ascended to the corner office of Microsoft, and I was really good at what I did, and I built skills and I built businesses, and I felt good about that. And in some cases, I saved jobs and created jobs, and that was a great thing. My definition of success today has nothing to do, my worth has nothing to do with the titles, the income, any of those things. My definition of success is truly what we said. Have I used absolutely every ounce of talent and gift that I've been given? And have I done it in such a way that makes a difference and helps someone else ascend or be the best they can be? If I can say yes to those things, that's my definition of success. My husband says I'm failing miserably at retirement because I'm retired. And then he'll say, when are you gonna stop working? And I say, when I stop breathing. Because I define work, my work is, the blessing, may your passion and purpose be your work. And as long as I'm passionate, so long as I have a purpose, I will work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I define success.
Yeah. It's interesting, which I love, by the way. I've always defined retirement, because you mentioned you're retired, as just not chasing money around. I've got tons to do.
I'm so busy. It's ridiculous.
Right. When you were at Microsoft or wherever,
Yeah.
you could have tons to do, but you had responsibilities in that corner office and things you had to do. When you just remove, how about we just don't chase money around? Well, I got 25 other things I want to do. Even for me personally, even having a podcast, bulletin to everyone. We don't make a ton of money on podcasts, but we meet people like Jane on podcasts. We learn things. We get it's incredibly fulfilling. It's wonderful talking to authors who are they're all passionate about their work. What a wonderful way to spend a day or spend an hour. So I get you on the retirement thing. It's just funny that you say retirement and most people go, "Oh, you mean just you're going to play golf and sit around?" No.
Well, and maybe that's your purpose and your passion. That's my husband's, and God love him. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my saying is, I used to work to make a living. I now work to make a difference. That's my definition. And I'm so grateful to get to do that.
Jane, you're going to see something that, unfortunately, it's a podcast, but I'm going to hold something up that I look at every day. You can read that out loud.
Oh, that's fantastic. We were not put on this earth to make a living. We were put on this earth to make a difference.
Bingo.
Oh, guys, that's legit. He's got the coffee stains on it, the whole bit. That's fantastic, Rob. Okay, so we're kindred spirits here.
We are. I think we define retirement the same way. And we define, I learned it from my dad. I remember as a kid, he was in the Lions Club, and I kept thinking, I don't know, with this whole charity thing, I didn't get it at 15 years old. I don't think I got it at 25. But as you get older and you realize you can do things like what Jane's doing for the Boys and Girls Club, is that's better than any job you're going to get. You have to wait in life to be able to position that, because we all have responsibilities. But I get that too, Jane. And I think
in the meantime, though, you can mentor, right? I used to think mentoring was a gift I gave to someone else. What a joke. You also get the same thing back. My book's got a picture of a front cover of a girl looking down a road in the cornfield. And a couple of weeks before I was going to launch this book, a mentee, I was having drinks with her and some other people, and maybe we'd had a little too much to drink. And she says, "Jane, I love your book, but I hate the picture." And I'm like, thank you. Might have been a little stronger than that. And I thought, well, kind of what a jerk thing to say. Except the next morning at 8 a.m., I checked my inbox and she's got a new cover for my book on it. And that's the cover that I'm using. And that's my mentee. So who was being mentored and who was being mentee?
Yeah. And who had, there's one more part of that story I want people to hear. And who had the grace to listen to that mentee? Because a lot of us, I'm telling you, Jane, get me on a good day, I'm fine. Get me on another day, and my eyebrow would go up in the air and go, I don't think you've earned that right yet. That's when I don't need queued up when I'm defending my life either, by the way. All right, last question for you. You mentioned mentors, mentees. How about you? Do you have any mentors in your life that you want to call out, one or two?
Oh my gosh. Dudley Lehman was a fantastic mentor when I was in my career. He was this guy you would never recognize that he was this powerhouse executive in terms of what he managed. He had like a slouchy kind of a polo shirt with a little extra room in his tummy for, around the waist for ho-hos and the ding-dongs he liked to eat. But he treated everyone really well. He made everyone feel positive. And at the end of the day, he inspired people to be better than we thought we could or would be. And so we became it. And that's probably the best form of mentor. And he became the benchmark by which I wanted to be the kind of leader I am. There's a lot of them, but that's the one that came to mind.
Well, thanks for bringing him up. And for everyone, I worry sometimes. Somebody asked me recently, I go, who's my mentor? I went, well, this guy, that guy. How about now? And I went, hamana. And it really stuck with me. And I went, that I'm not a hypocrite. I formalized a couple of relationships that it sort of got by me. So it's you're never too old to have a mentor. And thanks for sharing that one with me. All right, Jane, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to my website, janeboulware.com. You can email me at jane@janeboulware, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Look me up on LinkedIn. If you're professional, I'll accept, I promise. But go to my website because there's a way to contact me from there. But otherwise, my email is jane@janeboulware or jane@jboulware.com.
Okay. And Boulware is Boulware, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And the book is worthy, From Cornfields to Corner Office of Microsoft. I'm getting myself a copy. Go out and get yourself a copy too. Jane, I spoke to your publicist, and your publicist said, you're gonna love Jane. And I sort of was like, well, I'll be the judge of that. Jane, you're delightful. Really wonderful having you on the show. Let's both of us continue to try and not just make a living, make a difference. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed talking to you.
I have so enjoyed talking to you. The time flew by. Actually, I'm looking at my watch. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.